Jaehyun Moon had been famous since he was 17. He knew how to work a stadium of 60,000 screaming fans. He did not know how to work a Lagos Okada driver who was currently demanding triple the fare because, in the man's exact words, "Your face done too soft, you no be from here." That was the first 10 minutes of his new life. It did not improve. He was supposed to be invisible. That was the entire plan his manager had whispered to him at the airport in Incheon, gripping his shoulders like a man sending a soldier to war. 6 weeks. No interviews. No socials. No singing. I don't care if someone hands you a mic at a wedding. You keep your mouth shut and your head down. The company needs this scandal to die quietly, and you need to disappear. Disappearing, it turned out, was hard when you were 6'1", had never carried your own suitcase in 4 years, and thought blending in meant wearing a baseball cap. By the time he found the address his manager had arranged, a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet Lagos neighborhood, owned by a family friend of his company's Nigerian business partner. He had already been scammed twice, lost one shoe to Lagos traffic mud, and eaten something called suya that had made him cry a little, though he'd deny it if asked. The woman who opened the door looked at him the way you'd look at a package you didn't order. "You're the tourist," she said. Not a question. Yes, Jay. I'm Jay." He'd practiced saying it plainly. No bow, no photo card smile. Just a man. A boring, forgettable man. "Amara." She didn't offer a hand. She looked him up and down once, taking in the 2 clean sneakers, the suitcase that probably cost more than her car, the general air of a man who had never once in his life had to Google how to open a bank account. "You're late," she said, "and you look like trouble." "I'm very quiet," he said. "You won't even know I'm here." She did not look convinced. She was, in fact, correct not to be. By day 3, Amara had developed a system for cataloging Jay's incompetence, mostly because complaining about it to her sister on the phone had become the highlight of her evenings. "He doesn't know how to wash rice," she reported, stirring a pot while Jay hovered nearby, like a large, anxious cat. "I watched him try to fry an egg, and he stood away from the pan, like it was going to attack him." "Oil pops," Jay said defensively from the doorway. "It's a safety measure." "It's a stove, not a war zone." "You say that now. Wait until it pops you." Amara turned, unimpressed, spatula in hand like a scepter. "Has oil ever popped you?" "No, but I've heard stories." "From who?" He opened his mouth, closed it. The honest answer was a variety show he'd filmed 2 years ago, where a comedian pretended to be terrified of a frying pan for laughs, and 11-year-old brained Jay had apparently filed this away as real information about cooking. "A friend," he said instead. Amara went back to her rice, shaking her head, but there was the faintest twitch at the corner of her mouth that she would have denied under torture. He was, she was slowly realizing, not lazy. He was just spectacularly, almost impressively useless in the specific way of someone who had never once had to be otherwise. Every meal had been catered, every schedule managed, every problem solved by someone whose entire job was solving Jaehyun Moon's problems before he noticed he had them. Here, there was no one, just her, mildly seething, and him, mildly drowning. "Fine," she said finally, shoving a knife and a pile of onions toward him. "If you're going to live in my house, eating my food, pretending to be a tourist with the worst cover story I've ever heard, you're going to learn to chop an onion." "I have a cover story?" "Sweetheart, you told my neighbor you're in Nigeria for the culture. You looked like you were reading it off a cue card in your head." "I was," he admitted. For the first time, Amara actually laughed, short, surprised, like it had escaped before she could stop it. Jay felt something in his chest do an unfamiliar little flip, the kind he usually only got right before walking on stage. He decided, wisely, not to examine that too closely, and picked up the knife instead. He cut his finger 4 minutes later. She didn't even look surprised. The market trip happened on day 5, and it happened, as most disasters in Jay's new life did, because he trusted a stranger's smile. Amara had sent him with a short list and strict instructions. Tomatoes, pepper, onions, nothing complicated. Do not talk to anyone longer than necessary. And Jay, who genuinely thought he could handle a grocery list, had lasted exactly 11 minutes before a man selling authentic gold jewelry, wholesale price, very special price for you, my brother, caught his attention with a briefcase full of chains that caught the light beautifully. Jay, who had exactly zero concept of what things cost in Naira, who had spent 4 years having every price negotiated by a team of people whose entire job was to protect him from moments exactly like this one, handed over an amount of cash that made Amara actually sit down when he told her, tomatoes forgotten entirely. You gave him how much? It seemed reasonable at the time. For fake gold chains? They looked real. Everything looks real to a man who thinks eggs are dangerous. He winced. Fair. The problem, beyond the obvious problem of being an idiot, a fact he was becoming intimately familiar with, was that he genuinely didn't have much more cash. His manager had given him a modest allowance specifically calculated to be untraceable and unglamorous, the kind of money a normal tourist might carry, not the kind of money Jaehyun Moon usually had access to with a single phone call to his label, which meant, for the first time in his adult life, he actually needed something from someone and had no way to simply buy his way out of it. I'll pay you back, he told Amara, when she reluctantly covered the gap in what he owed. For groceries that week. I promise, when this is over, You'll what? Sing me a song? She said it as a joke. She had no idea. I could, actually, he said, and something in his voice made her look up properly for the first time in days, not at the hopeless tourist, but at the man underneath it, quiet and a little sad around the edges. What do you mean? Nothing, he said quickly. I mean I'd pay you back. Properly. I'm good for it. She studied him a beat too long. Amara was not a stupid woman. She had noticed, in the way you notice a stone in your shoe, that this man moved like someone used to being looked at. The way he angled himself in doorways, the way he flinched just slightly whenever her phone camera came out. She filed it away instead of asking. Everyone was allowed secrets. God knew she had a few of her own, the kind that made her keep strange, useless tourists at careful arm's length in the first place. Instead, she said, You're going to work it off. I don't have a work permit. I don't need your papers. I need my gutter cleared, my generator fixed, and someone to stop letting my neighbor's goat eat my hibiscus. Welcome to your new job, Mr. Investment. He looked genuinely like a man being sentenced. Then slowly, like it surprised him, he smiled. Okay, he said. Deal. It happened gradually, the way these things do. He learned to chop onions without crying, mostly. He learned that oil popped only if you were an idiot standing directly over it, a fact he relayed to Amara with the gravity of a man reporting a scientific discovery. The gutter, on his first attempt, defeated him so thoroughly that he sat down in the grass afterward and stared at the sky like a man who had lost a war. Amara found him there and, against her better judgment, brought him a glass of water and did not laugh at him. Much. The generator was worse. He fixed it not because he knew anything about generators, but because he watched 3 YouTube tutorials with the terrifying focus of a man who had once memorized 11-minute choreography in a single afternoon and refused to stop until it worked out of sheer stubborn pride. When it finally sputtered to life at 1 a.m., he woke the entire house cheering. You woke up my neighbors, Amara said, arms crossed in her doorway, trying and failing to look genuinely annoyed. The generator works. It's 1 a.m. Amara, the generator works. She looked at him, triumphant, disheveled, grease on his cheek, absolutely delighted with himself over a household appliance in a way that no international superstar had any business being delighted about anything, and felt something shift dangerously in her chest. Go to bed, she said, and closed her door before he could see her smile. The goat situation resolved itself a few days later when Jay, in a fit of inspiration, built a small fence out of scrap wood that was, Amara admitted, better carpentry than she expected from a man who couldn't tell a wrench from a spoon 2 weeks earlier. Where did you learn to do that? She asked, genuinely startled, running a hand along the neat joints. I pay attention, he said simply. I'm actually good at learning things. I just never had to learn these things before. What things did you have to learn? He hesitated. It was the closest he'd come to telling her. Different things, he said. Performance things. You're an actor? Something like that. She let it go, again, though she was starting to suspect the shape of the thing she wasn't being told. She wasn't in a hurry to push. She'd learned, in her own life, that people told you their real names when they were ready, and not a moment before. What she noticed instead, what she couldn't stop noticing actually, no matter how hard she tried to file it under temporary house guest, do not get attached, was how he'd started humming while he did chores. Quiet, unconscious, a low, warm sound while he swept the porch or fixed the fence post, like the melody just lived somewhere in him and leaked out when his guard was down. She never asked him to stop. She told herself that was just politeness. It was a Thursday, unremarkable in every way except that the power had gone out. His fixed generator, ironically, choosing that exact night to sputter and fail. And they'd ended up on the porch with candles and the last of the jollof rice, because Amara refused to let good food go to waste on principle. Tell me something true, she said, out of nowhere, the way people do when the dark makes honesty feel cheaper. Not the tourist story, something true. He looked at her for a long moment, candlelight doing something unfair to the line of her jaw, and made a decision he'd been circling for 2 weeks. I'm not a tourist, he said. I'm hiding. From what? My whole life, a little bit. He exhaled. I'm a singer. I don't know anymore. There was a scandal. Not really my fault, but it doesn't matter whose fault it is once the internet decides. My company sent me here to disappear until it blows over. Amara set down her plate slowly. You're famous. In some places, yes. Prove it. He blinked. What? Sing something. If you're going to sit on my porch and tell me you're secretly famous, prove it. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you're just a very confident liar with excellent carpentry skills. There was a version of Jay, the one from 6 months ago, the one who performed for arenas without a second thought. Who would have found this funny? This version, sitting in candlelight with a woman whose opinion had somehow, impossibly become the one he cared about most in the world, found it terrifying in an entirely new way. He sang anyway, quiet, unamplified, nothing like the version fans screamed for, just his real voice, a little rough at the edges, singing something he'd written himself and never released, about a man who didn't know how to be ordinary and was starting to think ordinary might be the best thing that ever happened to him. Amara didn't say anything when he finished. She didn't need to. Her face said it for her, something soft and stunned and a little bit undone. Okay, she said finally, voice not quite steady. You're famous. Does it change anything? She thought about it, really thought, the way she thought about everything, careful and unhurried. You still can't cook rice properly, she said. So, no, not really. He laughed, real, surprised, delighted, and in the dark, on a porch with no power and a fixed generator that had picked the worst possible night to fail, he reached over and took her hand, and she let him. The days after that were softer, easier, the careful distance between them worn down to something warmer. He told her more, not everything, not yet, but enough, about the stage lights and the schedules that ran his life down to the minute, about a childhood spent training instead of playing, about a scandal that had cost him more sleep than it should have, over something that, in the end, had barely been his fault at all. She told him things, too, slowly, about the business she was building, about a father she'd lost too young, about why she'd learned, a long time ago, to keep strangers at careful arm's length until they proved they'd stay. Neither of them mentioned that the 6 weeks were almost up. The call came on a Tuesday. His manager, brisk and relieved, said the scandal had finally died the way these things do. A bigger story replacing it, the internet's attention span doing what it always does. Time to come home, he said. We need you back for the album relaunch. Jay didn't tell Amara right away. He carried it around all day instead, heavy and unspoken, until she caught him staring at nothing over dinner and set down her fork with the particular patience of a woman who had grown used to reading him. You're leaving, she said. Not a question. I have to. I know. She said it simply, without drama, though something in her voice cracked slightly at the edges. You have an actual life, a career, people who need you. I have a life here. You have a debt here that you've mostly paid off, I'll have you know. I don't want it paid off, he said. I want a reason to stay. She looked at him a long moment. This man who'd arrived unable to fry an egg and was leaving able to fix a generator, build a fence, and somehow, against every reasonable expectation, become someone she couldn't picture her porch without. Then don't disappear again, she said. Go be famous. Go fix your career. But don't you dare vanish on me like you did on that scandal. Come back, properly, not hiding. Is that permission? That's a requirement, she said. I didn't spend 6 weeks teaching you to cook rice for nothing. He kissed her then. No candlelight required this time. Just ordinary Lagos evening light through the kitchen window. Entirely unglamorous and exactly right. He left 3 days later, suitcase in hand, considerably less useless than the man who'd arrived. The goat watched him go, with what could only be described as suspicion. Amara did not cry at the airport gate, she told her sister afterward, several times, unprompted, which everyone agreed was exactly the kind of thing a person says when they absolutely did. He fixed his career in time, the relaunch went well, the scandal faded into the industry's short memory. The schedule swallowed him whole the way it always had. But 3 months later, on a Saturday with no warning at all, a car pulled up outside Amara's house, and out stepped Jaehyun Moon, cameras and all, not disguised, not hiding, dressed like a man who had made a decision and intended to see it through. The neighborhood noticed immediately. Word spread down the street faster than the man himself could walk it. By the time he reached the porch, half the block had found a sudden, urgent reason to be outside. Amara stood in the doorway, arms crossed, doing her level best to look unimpressed and failing. You're supposed to call first, she said. I wanted to surprise you. You brought an audience. I brought cameras because I'm done hiding, he said. From the scandal, from my life, from this. He gestured between them, and then, in front of the whole delighted, gossiping street, in front of a goat straining indignantly against its fence, he asked her, plainly, without a script, nothing like the performances he'd spent his whole life rehearsing, if she'd consider making room on the porch permanently. The street went very quiet, waiting. The rice still needs work, Amara said. I know. And you still can't do the gutter properly. I know that too. She let him wait exactly as long as she felt like making him wait, which was long enough that he started to sweat slightly despite the mild evening air. And then she smiled. The real one, rare and unguarded, the one he'd first earned over a pile of onions weeks ago. Yes, she said. Okay, yes. The street erupted. The goat, entirely unmoved by human sentimentality, continued eating a hibiscus bush it had no business reaching, fence or no fence. Jay didn't notice. He was too busy kissing a woman who had taught a famous, hopeless man how to be, for the first time in his life, exactly where he belonged.
Thank you for taking your time to watch my YouTube video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. I will see you in my next video. Bye.